All right, rock and roll. Welcome one, welcome all to the Scorched Earth Political Podcast. I am your humble host, John, and here we welcome all, friend and foe, sinner and saint. And if you could kindly hit that like and subscribe button, it means a lot to us. If you're feeling really on the edge, and I don't know if you all are, I don't know if you can really handle it, hit that notifications button, that little bell there, ring the bell, right? When we get new content here. And I don't know. I'm not going to even say it because if you're really out on the edge, you leave a comment. And I've had a really good week with the trolls. It's been fantastic. Here, I know we're getting new subscribers every day. Here we talk about an unabridged, a more honest look than legacy media does at certain issues in the news. And here we try, our motto is taking no prisoners, telling no lies. And let's get to it. Let's burn it all to the ground. Okay, it seems like we've talked about quite a bit about Harvard's issue with the federal government cutting back on guaranteed loans that they were, or grants, scientific research grants that they were supposed to get because they are not DEI compliant, or they're too DEI compliant according to the Trump administration. But we have a cute little thing, Linda McMahon, who is now shutting down the education department. She's cute. I love that girl. So let's get to it. Let's see what we got here.
Harvard ending the grants to the university, marked up by Harvard for spelling and grammar errors. But this...
Well, looks like Harvard had to break out the red pen for old Linda. You know, maybe you ought to have a proofreader there, honey. I'm just saying. You know, if you're going to send a letter to Harvard, one of the most esteemed academic institutions in the world, don't you think you do a little spell check, or, you know, if I figure out what iambic pentameter is, or some of the associated, you know, phrases, graphs? I would assume it was spelled correctly, but man, there was a lot of red there. If you look back on it, hey, rewind, you know, go ahead, live on the edge. There's a lot of red there. I hope they got that red in. Harvard got that red in before the tariffs went into effect, because man, that would have cost a lot. And I mean a lot to correct stupid old Linda McMahon. You know, it's hard to believe that her husband and her were running a wrestling organization. Maybe the wrestlers aren't the only ones getting CTE, brain trauma. Just saying. All right, let's get going here. And let's talk about, we have a new pope. Blessings, greetings to the 1.4 million Catholic faithful. You got a new pope. As I've expressed previously in many episodes, I grew up Catholic. I was a altar boy. I went to Catholic school. I fell away from the religion because of the abuse scandal, because of incidents that people I had known, I cared about, who had suffered at the hands of pedophile priests. And we're not going to lament that today. This is a day of mourning and celebration for the faithful. I do believe the religion is a beautiful thing, even though I do think that it oppresses minorities. It has always been a weapon against people of the LGBTQ community for the longest time. Well, actually, and it's actually still in church doctrine that gay people can't get married in the church, right? And that's their thing. That's their religion. Hopefully they see the light and realize that we're all God's people. No matter what creed, no matter what color, no matter what sexual orientation, transgender, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. We're all created by the same beautiful God. God loves us all. And I'm going to tell you something. If God doesn't love us all, then it's not truly a loving God. Enough said, right? So we got the Pope. He came from, wait for it, Chicago. And I thought, honestly, I would never, ever see, I got to have a little whiskey here, an American Pope lead the church. And the view of America from the outside, from people I've encountered from other countries, was America takes enough on the global stage, but politically, militarily, economically, and that they did not want the church to be dominated by another American entity. And it seems legitimate to me. Truthfully, in the last 200 years, most of the popes have been from Italy. The church is based in Italy, in Rome. And we have had some exceptions in the last 40 years. We had Pope John Paul from Poland. We've had Pope Francis from Argentina, even though he had Italian parents. There is a thread. There always is a thread. And Cardinal Provost, Robert Provost of Chicago, had worked extensively in Latin America, Peru, and in the last couple of years, he was anointed a cardinal by the Pope Francis in 2023. He had worked in the Vatican. He seems like a good man. It seems like we have had a pope, Pope Francis, change the trajectory of the church, because out of the 133 cardinals who were voting on the new pope, he appointed 73 of them, over half, right? So his influence, people that he saw aligned with his view of the world, and this Pope Francis was very much the progressive, right? He believed in migrant rights. He believed in LGBTQ as much as you can in the church as it is. And he was the voice for those who did not have a voice. He said he was the only person who, there's a process in the Catholic Church that if you're married in the church and you get divorced, if you do not get an annulment, then you can never receive communion, which is one of the sacraments of the church, one of the tenets of the church. And he said, even divorcees are welcome in our church, which was it was literally a groundbreaking thing. Now, it did not change doctrine. It did not change dogma. Divorcees, if they don't have an annulment, cannot officially receive the blessing of the sacrament. But it was a step. And the road to Rome, the road to salvation, takes a long time sometimes. And the church has been around for 2,200 years plus, or 2,000, excuse me. Wow, I'm getting ahead of myself, John. You're giving them a little credit. That they are trying to do the best, and I wish this Pope to have the same voice that Pope Francis did, that he can be there for the oppressed, for the underserved, and the voiceless. The last Pope did a beautiful job. I hope this Pope, blessings for him, can carry on that legacy, and we shall see. We shall see what the future of the church holds. And I do hope that, in my personal opinion, my humble opinion, especially being from America and seeing how the sexual abuse scandal ravaged this church, that he does more things to make the people who abused others pay for it. That's all I'm going to say at this point. All right, let's get to more in the news. And boy, it was a tough day to be the acting director of FEMA. His name is Cameron Hamilton. I wouldn't have known it, but he actually seems like somebody in the Trump administration who actually had a conscience and actually had a soul. And we all know what happens in the Trump administration. When you do that, you get the door. See you later. See you wouldn't want to be you. He was fired one day after testifying before a Senate subcommittee, and he actually went to work today, and they escorted him out of the building. I am sure we are going to see that video. I know the Trump administration, they love the video. They love seeing the people getting off the plane in San Salvador with the shackles. They like putting it to music. Closing time, it seems to be a favorite one of theirs, the sadistic son of a bitches. But the release from DHS was, it is at the discretion of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. And it's amazing she had time to fire somebody or relieve them of duty while she was picking out her next cosplay prison photo shoot to have the personnel she prefers. David Richardson will take over for Hamilton effective immediately. I mean, this guy didn't even get 24 hours. Now, why did he get fired? That's a good question. I think I'm going to try and answer it for you. The move comes one day after Hamilton defended FEMA during testimony in front of the House Appropriations Committee. Boy, talk about a guy who just knew he was living on the edge. That's like scorched earth. We live on the edge. He lived on the edge. As the senior advisor to the president on disasters and emergency management and to the Secretary of Homeland Security, I do not believe it is in the best interest that the American people to eliminate the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. This guy has been on the ground. He's seen Los Angeles. He's seen Arkansas. He's actually seen the remnants of unfortunately, North Carolina when that hurricane hit last year. He also continued, oh, well, hold on. I'm going to save that teaser for later. For months, both Trump and Noem, who oversee the Homeland Security of FEMA, have called the agency to be eliminated. That seems to be a common theme in the Trump administration. Let's get rid of USAID. Let's get rid of the Education Department. Let's get rid of FEMA. On Tuesday, Noem reaffirmed the stance when she took questions from the same House subcommittee as Hamilton appeared before. She said, we do want to eliminate it. Obviously, can you imagine how awkward that is after this gentleman said that they are doing a great job, and she says, we're going to eliminate them. She said, President Trump has been very clear since the beginning that he believes that FEMA and its response in many, many circumstances have failed the American people, and that FEMA as it exists today should be eliminated. I'm going to tell you a personal story. In January, I live in Los Angeles, and in January, we had the terrible West Side fires, Altadena, the west side of Los Angeles. I went up to Altadena to volunteer in the days after the ravaging fires. And I went up there and I saw people who were middle class. Let's just call them middle class. They were hanging on by their fingernails. They literally were. They were staying in a gym, temporary tent housing. They were getting food. Your house gets eliminated. Your whole world, whatever, it's a flood, it's a fire, it's a tornado, it's a hurricane, whatever, an earthquake. You don't have a place to live. How many people in this country are ready for that? And you know what? F it all. Because that is what we pay taxes for. That is what our government is here for, is to protect and take care of the American people. It is why I am a big advocate of health care for all. The government, its first obligation shouldn't be lining the pockets of the president with meme coin billions. God damn it. It should be about taking care of American citizens. Straight out. That is the first priority of this government. Not seeing which billionaire in the cabinet we can short stocks on the day of tariffs, so they can add to their already egregious wealth. I mean, really, where is the priority of this administration? It sure isn't about people. The people of Arkansas voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump in the last election. They just were hit by vicious hurricanes and storms. They've had tens of thousands of people displaced from their homes. The government said, sorry, that doesn't qualify as a disaster. Really? 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 On American soil. And we sit here, and that's how the government divides us, because they just pick us off little by little. And because I don't live in Arkansas, I go, that's a tough break. Until it comes to your door. Here it is. Because we all live in an area where there can be a calamity. Straight up. I don't care where you live in this country. Texas thought it was safe. Oh, yeah? How's that Hurricane Harvey talking to you? Everywhere is susceptible to some weather anomaly. Hell, I live in Los Angeles. I want to say it was 3 years ago. We had a hurricane off the coast. Like, wow, there's the other side of global warming, right? Where we have a city like Phoenix, which had 90 straight days of over 110 last summer. Yeah, we're not cooking the earth. Right, you keep believing that one. Sure, you keep believing that one. And I'm going to tell you another fairy tale at the end of this session, right? Well, Hamilton, in his testimony before the House committee, struck a starkly different tone than Kristi Noem. He called the FEMA staff one of the greatest workforces in the entire federal government. And I will say this. I have friends who work in the federal government, and I want to say, and I've been on record about this, that they truly are some of the hardest workers I've ever seen. They have layers and layers of auditing. Now, Doge calls that waste. I call it efficiency because they get the most out of their workers. Most of the people I know who work for the government are going in volunteering on weekends, doing a couple hours here because they understand they have a response. Well, let me take that back. I need to check myself on that. They are for the public good. They don't have that responsibility. They take it on themselves. They are selflessly giving themselves to their country and their people by doing extra tests in a health lab or doing other things. And you know what? We have an administration who doesn't care about them. And that's where I got really angry because this thing about inefficiency, they're lazy, they're spoiled. That's all bullshit. It straight up is bullshit. Look, at the end of the day, Doge went in there with the chainsaw, right? Remember the $2 trillion that became $1 trillion, that became $156 billion, which the New York Times checked, and the receipts on the wall were only for $56 billion, and the New York Times even disputes that, right? Think about this. You have a $7 trillion budget. Let's say it's $60 billion. Let's just give Doge what they want. That's less than 1%. And like I've told you, any CEO in any business, in any place, would kill for 1% inefficiency. 1%. Jesus criminy. I'm telling you, I've worked at businesses. They were really well run. I know there was more than that. A lot more. Just because of just things not lining up. It wasn't like they were trying to be inefficient. Businesses always try to be as efficient, but there is going to be inefficient things that happen just because of the nature of the way they layer their logistics, management, things like that. Cameron Hamilton, we barely knew you. As CNN has reported, the Trump administration is considering raising the threshold to qualify for federal disaster assistance, and the other alternative they're looking at is eliminating the program altogether, FEMA. Wow. Great. So the people in Arkansas aren't going to qualify. People in California aren't going to qualify. Great. You know what? The only thing that's going to qualify is if the effing hurricane hits Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster. If it's a Trump property, man, roll the money in. Let's go. It's all about me. It's kind of like when Superstorm Sandy hit the New York metropolitan area back in, I think, 12. And all the senators and congresspeople from Texas are like, oh, we're not going to vote for any aid. We're not going to help you. That's a liberal mecca until Hurricane Harvey hit a couple years later. And then all of a sudden they got their hand up. They got the cup. Hey, we need some money. Please help us. And I have no problem with that. America's government, the federal government, should help the American people. Straight up. We shouldn't be buying goddamn meme coin, which is just a Ponzi scheme, if you ask me. Pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, but I'm not going to get into it. Hamilton then told lawmakers the reforms underway at FEMA should be done slowly and carefully. Of course, sorry, that's it. See you later, Chuck. We don't got no time for you. Also, an interesting tidbit CNN is reporting that Hamilton was given a lie detector test just days ago after taking part in a top DHS meeting for a policy discussion on the future of FEMA. Details of that meeting leaked out. So what happens? All the top officials at DHS underwent a polygraph to see who leaked to the press. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I salute the man. He stood up for the American people. Jesus. All right. As we go further down the rat hole, that is our current administration, Fat Man, Donald Trump, finally got the trade deal. Well, sort of. It's like jazz hands, right? He announced that he has a trade deal with the UK. Well, sort of. He has a framework for negotiations between the U.S. and the United Kingdom that will take place between the two countries over the next year to year and a half. Now, here's where I think most people in media are not talking to you honestly, is let's say you have two countries. Let's say you got England and you have America, right? And you're thinking to yourself, well, Donald Trump says we got a trade agreement. Okay, why are you saying, John, it's going to take 18 months? Hey, you know what? You're getting smarter. You want in? Come on in. No. The reason is they have to negotiate every item that both countries manufacture. How many items? The United States is the second biggest manufacturing country in the world behind China. How many items do you think we make? Millions on millions on millions. They need to negotiate every one. What's the tariff rate? The tariff rate for every goddamn one. How long does that take? No, it doesn't happen in 4 days. Q-tip swabs. How much is the tariff rate? Cotton balls. Mugs. Every item both countries produce, they have to set a tariff. They negotiate. It's not like they go, okay, we got 60 items, it's all going to be. No, it doesn't work that way. And then let's get deeper into it because nobody is telling you this. Exactly what is a coffee cup? Now, you and I know what a coffee cup is, but for instances of trade, is a coffee cup something with a handle that can hold a beverage? Oh, what about a cooler? What about that if they put a handle on it? Those are the insane things. And look, China did such a great job when Trump instituted his tariffs in 2017 with them. They found the loopholes. Okay. Now that's why Trump says, oh, we got a bad deal with China. Well, you're the guy who made the deal with China. Christ's sakes, who are you blaming? This is the only president I know who makes the deal and then 8 years later bitches about the deal, about the guy who did it, and it was him. Same thing with Canada and Mexico. He ripped up NAFTA. He made a North American free trade agreement. Another one. Now he's unhappy with Canada and Mexico. Of course, two of our best neighbors, but hey, don't worry about that. I mean, really, who in this world can hate the Canadians, right? So we're going to see that over the next 16 months. Now, here's an interesting little side bit. He needs to get this done, all these 200 more deals that he says he's going to get done, before July 8th. That seems to be a big date. Now, I don't like going down too much of this. I know I see a lot of other podcasts and they start claiming the sky is falling because of things that are perceived or they're talking about. And we all know, like on April 9th, when he had Liberation Day, and then 2 days later he put a pause on it. You know, this guy talks out both sides of his mouth, right? I mean, it's like something out of the con game, you know, Ocean's 11, right? Not that I love all those guys, don't get me wrong, but you know, what's real and what's not, right? You don't know. And I was talking to my mom today, and I said, right now, if you're in America, you're an American, do you think the tariffs will be in effect in 3 months from now? And I want everybody out there to think about that question, okay? Today is Friday, April 9th, and 3 months from now, May, June, July, not July 9th, which we just talked about. Okay, John, get with the podcast, get your head out of your butt. Do you think, where will the tariffs be? I'm going to tell you something. You interview 100 people on Wall Street, you're going to get 75 different answers. Because he may rescind them a little, he may impose them, he may put new ones on. Nobody has a clue. And the business community is not going to invest in America when they have this idiot running the show. Just straight up. Would you? Would you put $100 million into this? And if you're wrong, everybody's still going to be shipping from Vietnam, India, China, and you're stuck here in America with a factory you cannot labor up and be competitive with because they're paying their workers $0.25 an hour and you're paying yours $25 an hour. You know, that's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. I had this discussion today. Everybody in America, this is what it is. Everybody in America wants to pay as little as possible for every item, but on the other side, they want to make as much money as possible. That is the American dream. And like we found out in 2001 when President Bush and the Republican Congress and the Republican Senate allowed China to come into the WTO, that is when the world got flooded with cheap Chinese goods. Okay, our standard of living did go up. Trade is not a net zero game. It doesn't have to be 0-0. It has to be a net positive game. And as we got in more goods from China that cost less, our standard of living went up. Now we have more money for a better car, or maybe a vacation home, or a boat, or a vacation. Our standard of living rose. That's what it was. Okay, you want it? Okay, that's fine. Everybody goes to Dollar Tree. They go wherever they go. They pay $1.25, which, why is it $1.25 when it's Dollar Tree? But okay, let's move on. They pay $1.25 for an item. But now, with all the tariffs, it's going to be $3. Who's going to be down with that? I guess we're going to find out, right? Now, the big one is China, right? We got to see. They're going to meet this weekend in Geneva. Representatives of America, representatives of China, to start formal talks on a renegotiation of the trade agreement. Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, says he is not looking for a deal. He's hoping for a de-escalation of the tension that is rising between the two countries. Beijing has said, as a precondition for these talks, that they need to lower the high tariffs. Trump has done that behind the scenes. That's what I'm reading. For them even to engage. So they've already got a win against Trump, right? The tariffs are at least 145% on most Chinese imports, and they have 125% retaliatory tariff on us. Let's just see who wins this pissing contest, right? The current tariff rate on every import in America is 22%. I don't know why it's 22. I thought it was 25. You know, it's just a very difficult thing. Like I explained to you, what they have to hammer out in a trade negotiation. And there's 200 more countries out there? I mean, literally, everything a country makes. How many things do we make here? Jesus Christ, right? Honestly, it has effectively stopped all trade between the two countries, right? Flexport, which I've talked about, what that gentleman talked about, the importing, says that sailings, cargo ships from China to the U.S. fell 60% in April. The shortages are coming. They're going to be here at the end of May. They're going to run out of inventory in the warehouses. And let's be honest, if you were a Target, you're a Walmart, you're a big corporation that has warehouse, and you know everybody else, everybody across the board is going to be choked out of supply, aren't you going to raise the price in your supply? Why would you not? What is this going to do to Amazon? Yeah, the big guys are going to be okay. It's the little guys who are going to get wiped out. And that's how it always works. All right, that's enough today. We had our economics lesson. I got to tell you, I love you guys. You guys are the best. We're in this together. We're going to win because we're on the side of right. We're on the side of good. And we oppose a dictatorial president. All right? We're fighting for democracy. I need you. We need each other. If you can, hit that like and subscribe and be good. Have a good weekend. We're over and out from Scorched Earth.